It's Deep Forest Week. And you know what that means. You've probably been involved in something like this. Or this. Or maybe more like this. Don't worry, I've been there too. But sometimes in deep forests, you get great races that are defined by the finest of margins. And I got a few of them to show you. Let's go. What's up guys, Kizzy here with another video of races, and this time we've got Deep Forest in Group 3 cars as shown earlier in the week. In this time we're gonna be repping the amazing Hot Wheels livery on the Dodge Viper. Whoever did this livery deserves a raise if they work making liveries, because this is amazing stuff that we're watching here. So we're gonna start this first race in P7, and this is gonna be one where I'm gonna find myself in certain situations that are gonna give me some edge, but you have to see them to understand what I mean. So we're gonna go into sector 1 for the first time in this race. As you can see, the pack is already very tight ahead, and immediately we're gonna see some drips of contact starting in the first two places. Goldie ahead, as we know, very quick driver in the Gran Turismo community, started in pole position, and we're gonna try to follow this train of cars as close as we can so that we can take momentum of whatever happens in front of us. So immediately at the end of lap 1, heading into the hairpin for the first time, I try to make a look on Bembo Baggins, and as soon as I see my radar, I started almost staining my pants because so many cars pop around in this track at the start of lap 1, and immediately Bembo decides that it's not my time to be around the pack. Let me just try to get some clean air and head into the pits. However, what that means to me is that, and before I get murdered, absolutely almost murdered by someone else behind me, what Bembo is trying to say to me right there is that he prefers not changing tires for this particular race, and he's gonna just try to beat everybody else in clean air. However, sometimes that strategy doesn't play along too well, because one main thing of Deep Forest in Group 3 cars lately is using the custom strategy to build pace. And as you can see, we hit a purple sector, although it's lap 2 so it doesn't really count, and we're heading into the hairpin for the second time, just behind our great friend Heat On 93. Amazing racer. I enjoy every single race that I do with him on the track, while Efont is gonna jump into the pit on lap 2, so he's gonna potentially follow the same train of thought that Bembo did in lap 1. And we're gonna establish the pace of this race in lap 2 with a 1:27.0 as the quickest and fastest lap of the race so far. Heaton and I are gonna go side by side in turn 1. However, he's gonna get the edge heading into the uphill. However, you're gonna see that he puts the tires in the grass on the right hand side, and that is gonna constitute a painful half-a-second penalty to start this race. So I already am aware of this with Heat On in P4, and by this point I know that this is going to be a position that I'm going to take. Goldie ahead is going to have a little bit of a slip and struggle coming out of the bridge, and he's going to allow us to go through, and by this point I'm already positioning myself in a podium early in the race in lap 3. Exciting stuff to start the race with. And then Goldie decides that he doesn't want to take it anymore. He drops the race because it was not an ideal start. It happens, even to the fastest drivers, as he essentially is. Amazing driver, actually, by the way. So we are gonna go into lap 4 for the hairpin once again. Purple sector in sector 2, and at this point I'm braking into the hairpin, trying to follow along with the first two positions, and they're gonna have a little bit of rubbing coming out of the hairpin, which is gonna delay their exits quite a bit. So now I'm gonna try to get the approach on Venom with the custom slipstream, and I want to pass on the inside, but I don't measure it well, and my face doesn't express too much pleasing out of that movement. However, we recover the fastest lap on lap 4, so we are definitely in some type of flow on this race. A little bit of a love tap right there with Venom coming out of turn 1, starting lap 5. Nothing intentional, nothing malicious. And then the driver in P1 is going to pick up another half a second penalty, which is going to put him even closer to my reach as we come out of the bridge in this point, almost halfway through the race. We're going to speed up a little bit right here and now. Venom is going to try to take advantage of the half a second penalty. They're going to go 2 abreast into the hairpin, and this is going to be quite an amusing thing for me to watch, because now they're in the slipstream range for me, and they're going to start battling a little bit ahead, and I'm going to try to take advantage of this, but it's way too far away. I'm not going to be able to do it, and I almost end up smacking the Saudi Arabian driver in the side and my face of complete fear, and then restraining back to normal status expresses it all. So here we are now, midpoint of the race, lap 7. Still, the target's very close, and Zigzag Racing, who established the fastest lap of the race, is going to take advantage of my early braking, and he's going to take the inside move to recover now P3. So yeah, a little bit of an early brake just to avoid any incident in front of me. And now both Venom and the Saudi driver are going to go into the pits on lap 7. So I decided to stay out with Zigzag just to take advantage of his slipstream at this point and see if we can actually build some little bit of pace to try to gain those 2 positions when we come out of the pits. Heat On recovers back and joins us in the party at the start of lap 8. So in this situation, I don't want to battle with Zigzag. I'm actually bump drafting him into the hairpin for the 8th time. However, he's gonna have a little bit of a deep exit out of the corner, and now we're gonna be side by side exiting out of the hairpin, and I was deciding to go into the pits at this point. Zigzag had the same idea, and we're basically gonna go into the pits at the exact same time. My laughter says it all. And at this point I decided to change tires just because of how tight the race is, and because I didn't want to risk Zigzag actually coming ahead without no changing tires. But when he comes out the pits, he has a 3-second penalty, and at that point I thought maybe it was because of the pit entry, but in actual fact the replay is going to show us that he's going to cross just the tip of the pit exit line, and that is going to cost him 3 seconds, which he's going to serve on lap 9. And now Heat On and I are up in front trying to measure ahead with Bembo, who again decided to pit early in the race, lap 1, may I remind you, and he did not change tires. So we, both of us, on fresh set of tires versus a couple drivers ahead, Venom and the Saudi driver, who pitted on lap 7, but essentially probably did change tires, or maybe didn't. At this point I wasn't sure. But Bembo definitely did not change tires because of the early pits. So we're going to try to establish some type of flow and pace to see if we can actually chase him and reach him. Heat On is starting to take some distance away from me at this point, so I want to recover that, and then almost another little bit of an incident attempt on my rear from the drivers behind. So definitely a lot of chaos that can happen in these races at Deep Forest. So then we see Hoxton, aka Hoggy GT, going into the pits, another good friend of ours of this channel. Amazing driver as well, great content. If you haven't seen his content, please make sure to go to his channel and drop him some love over there. He goes into the pits, so we pick up that position, and now we're into P6, and this incident is gonna take place ahead of us, with Afon, who pitted very early on lap 2, actually crashing at the exit of the bridge. And this is going to allow Heat On and Bembo to go 3 abreast with him into the hairpin on lap 12. I did not want to form part of any of this at this point, but I wanted to take advantage of it. So I tried to make my best exit possible out of the conflict ahead, pick up the slipstream from Afon. It's not really working, and Bembo with the Viper versus this RC set actually has some advantage, so we switch. And I decide that I want to go with the slipstream of Bembo at this point and see if I could actually stick and move to make it a 2-4-1, but it's not gonna be there. Bembo is actually gonna be on the outside protecting the position, make sure to give him some room on the exit, everything fine, and we keep racing on lap 13, but definitely the stakes are very, very high at this point. Continue in sector 1, very tight corners, and especially with worn tires, Bembo's gonna have some struggle, so we keep the chase ahead, going down the back straight on lap 13. And this might be our chance to pull the last move that we're gonna need to put to recover P4, and we go for the inside move into the hairpin, brake as late as we can, take the apex, and the exit is gonna secure that position in P4. And also Ifon behind actually tried to sneak in between the gap that I left from the move on Bembo to see if he could take the P5. They keep battling, so now breaking into turn 1, everyone's trying to brake as late as possible. We get away from all of that chaos, try to survive that final lap start. We couldn't get any closer to heat on the rest of the race, but definitely the midfield and the battle in between the middle laps of this race were very well defined by small margins. Small mistakes that could cost you penalties that could definitely affect your race in big proportions. So then we decided this is a great race, actually weaving a little bit the car to say good race to heat on, amazing race. Now we switch over to the Americas region. And in the Americas region, this is going to be an extremely exciting battle that you're going to see from start to finish all the way through. Starting P4, this time with our Panamanian account, Paul in the pole sitter. So we're gonna try to make an extreme reach at the start of the lap 1, and we're gonna try to just follow along with the podium sitters at this time and see if we can build some type of pace behind them. A little bit of a cinematic right there on Deep Forest. Tight curves all the way along, and I'm very surprised how the Viper is actually the meta car for this race, knowing how weighty it is and how twitchy it can be on the throttle when you try to exit different corners. However, all of us in the Viper ahead, and also Man RXJ behind us. Now we're gonna go 3 abreast into the hairpin right on lap 1, immediately trying to chase for those positions, braking late. The Paraguayan actually braking a little later than us, but we get a better turn, a better exit, and that's a 2-4-1 at the hairpin on lap 1. The satisfaction phase takes place in this race right now. So now we need to get away from the American Jay Zeus, right bump drafting up in this case, and then we try to make the late move on Paul. You're gonna notice that the liveries between the cars in live race and then the replay are gonna be a little different. I don't know why Gran Turismo does that right now. It's a little very buggy, as you may know. But let's look at behind how the train of cars just follow along through these very technical corners in Sector 1. It's just incredible sometimes how the packs can form. And again, as I said, very tiny mistakes could cost you your race in this particular situation, in this particular combo. So now we're trying to follow Paul, but in pushing a little bit too hard, we're gonna pick up ourselves one of those that we didn't want, one penalty of half a second. So we're gonna serve that in the next lap, given the fact that it was very close to the penalty serving section or area. So now we're just gonna try to follow along with Paul. Actually, I overbraked a little bit right there, but we're gonna recover with the exit. Enough space given so that I can take a comfortable exit. Very well done by Jay Zeus. I hope that I'm pronouncing that correctly. Sometimes the names are a little bit tricky to pronounce, but I don't wanna, again, as I said in my previous videos, don't wanna disrespect anybody. So there we go on lap 3. At the start of lap 3, we put a little bit of a quick lap, but it's very quickly beaten. We'll try to take the move on the outside a little bit too much, and Paul actually holds himself very well on the apex to get a good exit and keep it going. So now we're gonna serve the penalty that we picked up from the previous lap. The two drivers behind us are going to go past, but they immediately are going to surrender that position with this incident right here. The Canadian driver actually pushing Jay Suis out of the field. And now we're going to take P2 back again, even with the penalty serve. And when we look in the perspective, Paul is still very well at reach, just within 0.7 of a second. And now half a second around the sector 1 once again in lap 5. We're going to try to get a good close-up to Paul so that we battle all the way through for this race victory. And now we're going to head back again into the hairpin at the end of lap 5, checking to see if we can force a mistake on the American driver right ahead. A battle of vipers all the way through with enough gap behind to just make it such an exciting race and such an exciting battle in this Swiss deep forest, artificial, fake, fictitious Swiss deep forest. And there we go with the move on lap 6 at the start of turn 1, taking the move on the outside, completing the overtake to recoup the lead at this point. And we're heading in the uphill up for sector 1, trying to establish the pace now. So amazing moves that are seen in this race when you have two long straights, such as the main straight of the lap and also the back straight after the bridge. Definitely with the custom slipstream you can get a lot of moves done if you execute them correctly, which Paul is going to decide now to do one of those. At the start of the hairpin on lap 6, he's going to take the inside line, hold it very well, take the apex just a little bit overshot, but he recovers it very well to do a good exit and take the position back. And now we sneak right in behind Paul for the start of lap 7. We're gonna take this battle all the way through without allowing anyone else to go. A little bit of an accidental bump draft in this case. Gonna reopen back to take the normal line. Paul is gonna protect the apex right at the start of turn 1 on lap 7. Now we're gonna exit, sneak right behind. A little bit of a fast forward across the lap so that you can appreciate how close this whole race was. And now it was our opportunity to make the exact same move that we got done in the previous lap. Inside line on the hairpin, brake all the way through as late as possible, and accelerate out of the corner as early as you dare. And now we recoup the lead once again at the middle of the race. Paul's not gonna leave himself hanging though. He's gonna keep battling ahead, very cleanly, very respectfully, but very competitively nonetheless. And I almost muffled my words trying to say that with such an excitement voice. So now we're gonna go once again into turn 1, trying to make the late brakes stick and take that position, keep that P1 all the way through. Another fast forward, and again, so close racing, so close margins all the way through. Paul is going to attempt once again the move on the hairpin, and at this point it's just becoming a trade-off between positions all the way through, but very cleanly, very respectfully. Room is given, space is granted, and people are able to execute their racing moves all the way through and correctly. Now Paul is going to decide to take the pit lane on lap 8. I decide to stay around for one more lap, actually 2 more. We're going to jump into the pits at the end of lap 10, trying to do the overcut to get the freshest tires at the end of the race. Pit exit is going to be very tight with Paul flying down the straight. He's actually going to maintain the position and the lead, but we are just right behind him still to keep going and keep this battle all the way through. Intense. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something beautiful to watch right here in deep forest, and this is sometimes the beauty when you race cleanly and not racing like whoever was that other guy in the chat was trying to take a pun towards. And you never like to see that happening, to be fair. It's a game, people. Don't take it that seriously, although sometimes I also do. We've all been there. But let's go back into the racing, because we're gonna try to pull another move on Paul at the end of the hairpin, lap 12. The race is almost over at this point. He's gonna brake even later than usual, trying to take the outside line. It's not gonna work, and we're gonna take that position back, take that lead back. Now, very conscious that there's two drivers trying to chase for the lead, but the real battle is right here, and you see this side by side. Paul taking advantage of the slipstream one more time at the start of lap 13, and he's gonna go all the way into turn 1. Let's go back to the gameplay cam once again, live cam at the moment, with the real livery of Paul actually in action, going back again into the uphill for sector 1. Tricky corners one more time. I have the fresher tires out of the two, but Paul is still maintaining such a good pace, actually providing us such a good battle. Now, end of lap 13, I decide not to go for the move, in this case, on the hairpin. I'm gonna save that for the last bits of the race, and we'll see if that plan actually works as expected. Again, cinematic, starting the last lap of the race in the main straight, trying to take advantage of that slipstream, and we're gonna try to make a move into turn 1, see if we can make it stick, looking for the outside line once again, braking a little later, trying to maintain the line as tight as possible. It's not gonna land, but we're gonna still be side by side almost, lots of space given, tucking in right behind Paul's lead one more time, going through the tricky corners, trying to force any mistakes that are going to make him slower through these sections, and we can take the lead of the race. Now, a little tap right there, not intentional, just part of the hard, intense, tight racing that we're appreciating in these Swiss trees and jungles and forests, and however you want to call it. And here we go once again into the back straight, exiting out of the bridge. Take a good exit, sneaking in behind the car up front to make advantage of the custom slipstream. And this is going to be our last chance to try to make a move stick at the end of the race, side by side, going into the hairpin, braking at the banner, the Gran Turismo banner, taking hold of the apex right on the inside line. And the exit is going to be the most important part right here. Make it land, build a little bit of separation coming out of the kink, the right hand kink, and trying to take a little bit of a wider line to try to break the toe so that he doesn't take advantage at the end of the straight. And there we go, all the way, a drag race to the finish line. Is it gonna be enough? It is, by 16 milliseconds. Intense battling between me and Paul. Amazing racing, well done. So fun and so exciting to have these type of racing, and lots of respect shared. How amazing it is when you can race against drivers that push you to the very limit, and the race gets decided by the finest of margins. But sometimes races can be decided actually by how well you can apply a strategy. If you want to look at how I applied an alternative strategy to one of our recent races at Suzuka, make sure to click this link right here.